Penn president, board chair resigns after furor over comments on campus, anti-Semitism. So she resigns. Then other things come out. Let me see this one here. Former President Liz McGill last week made a very unfortunate misstep consistent with what of two peers university leaders sitting alongside her after 5 hours of aggressive questioning before a congressional committee, stated Scott L. Bach, the chairman of the University of Penn. Following that, became clear that her position was no longer tenable, and she and I concurrently decided that it was time for her to exit. Representative Stefanik applauded McGill's resignation, saying, "One down, two to go. This is only the beginning of addressing the pervasive rot of anti-Semitism that has destroyed the most prestigious higher education institutions." And a couple other things came out with her plagiarizing the Harvard alumni president, Gay. Tom, I'll read that and I'll just turn it over to you from there. Harvard alumni outrage after president accused of plagiarizing desertion, okay? Harvard alumni demand an investigation into plagiarism allegations against school president Claudine Gay, with Christopher Rufo and Christopher Burnett accusing of verbatim plagiarism as they reveal instances of lifting text from other academics. As stated in their report, first, Gay lifts an entire paragraph, nearly verbatim, from Lawrence Bobo and Franklin Gilliam, great last name, race, sociopolitical political participation, and black empowerment, while passing it off as her own paraphrase and language. The researchers emphasize that such plagiarism violates Harvard honor code, potentially leading to disciplinary action. Harvard's honor code specifies that students who submit work not their own or fail to attribute sources can face disciplinary measures, including potential withdrawal from college. So one of the three resigns. The other one's getting caught plagiarizing. Tom, what do you think is going to end up happening here?
So let's go run down the list. Let's take the easy one first. Penn. Wall Street Journal today, the Wall Street frickin' Journal today, says blames wealth, rich, for the McGill departure, that they had been on her back for weeks, and there'd been, a dialogue that was getting very tense between them. Wait a minute. So how did the Journal, what is the Journal saying? So Penn, they're trying to spin it already that, well, it's these doggone rich. Oh, you mean the ones that go to Wharton that are funding your endowment? Those doggone rich? So Penn, McGill resigns. The pressure was on from the alumni, people from Wharton. It all came to a head. She said what she said. She was wrong. And they fired her. So it seems like what happened at Penn was what should have happened after the congressional congressional hearing, where she said what she said. And that was trying to be spun that, oh, well, it was the rich that did it, and they've been trying to get her for weeks, right? BS. You're just trying to put a spin on it. Then at Harvard's the one that is actually more complicated but easier. It gets summed up this: the woke mob, including the board at Harvard, the trustees at Harvard, have protected their own. It's pure hypocrisy. They've protected their own. They see this as a noble fight. There are billboards out there right next to Harvard calling for her resignation. There are alumni sending letters and posting on X very eloquent, well-researched statements calling for her dismissal. And Rufo presented a beautiful dissertation on, not beautiful meaning well put together dissertation, on the plagiarism that happened in her own scholarly articles as she presented herself for president. So if this had been a white male, this person's gone. This would already be over. But Harvard is protected. The trustees and the board are protecting their person, and they see this as a noble fight. You have to understand what's going on here. The trustees and the board of Harvard are taking her side because they see it as a fight against the ones that are not completely lined up with their woke agenda. That's the only reason they're defending her. They are defending one of their own tribe, one of their own mob, and that's what they've done. And last night, they expressed support for her and said that she would not be resigning. And she said, I'm not resigning. This happened very late last night. There were apparently meetings of the board that went on yesterday and yesterday evening. So they've come out and said this. Alumni this morning were freaking out because the executive committee of the Alumni Association, so think of that as like the board, not all the members, just the board. They came out and said, hey, the board of trustees needs to come out and make a positive statement of support for her and keep her. And there were people like Bill Ackman that said, wait a minute, I'm a prominent alumni. I wasn't called. They didn't poll the alumni. The Alumni Association Executive Committee acted alone without really getting the consensus of the alumni, because there was no consensus. The alumni are calling for her resignation. So it sums up at Harvard is the woke mob protect itself.
But okay, besides the backlash from what they said or they didn't say at the hearing, Tom, how bad is this going to be for the future of Harvard, for obviously anybody Jewish trying to go to this school, but what's the long term for her staying there going to look like for the school?
I think what you have to see is look at what is Harvard. Harvard is not a college. Harvard is an association of elite woke individuals and their children that are going to the school. And here's what I mean by that. If you take a look at it's very interesting.
Meaning you're not the customer and they're okay losing you.
Oh, wow.
They're okay losing your kids. They're okay losing his kids. They're okay losing everybody's kids.
Exactly.
They're okay with that.
Wow.
And by the way, you should. There is a graph that came out. I don't know if you can find it, Rob, about grade compression that went on at Harvard. And there's a chart that came out this past week that showed that the average grade GPA was creeping up. I think it was from Charter, CHARTR, Charter. It did the thing on Harvard grade compression, and it's a shocking chart that shows you that the median grade given out now, Pat, is 3.8. Median 3.8 means if you come to Harvard, how dare we give you a C and upset the woke customer? And so it's horrifying. So they have ceased to be.
I actually love the fact that they took this position. You know why I love the fact that the board took this position? Let me tell you why the board took this position. In this situation, Penn won. In this situation, Penn won because you can hire somebody. For example, you can hire somebody in a company, and how much background check can you do on the person? Do you know if the person's a serial killer? No. Do you know if this person likes young boys? No. Do you know if this person has certain porn habits you don't know about? No. Do you know if this person... You don't know this stuff, right? You hire them. But then imagine you hire them, and that comes out, and then you don't fire them. If the board fires them, what the company is telling you is, we don't stand for that. But if you hire them and the board keeps them, what the company is saying is, we stand for that. So in this situation, Penn is saying, we don't stand for what she just did. Harvard is saying, we do stand for what Gay did.
Wow.
So Harvard lost big time, okay? Parents, if you're thinking about putting your kids in Harvard, you may want to think twice. Bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. You know, there's a school locally here. You know what the school is. I went to the school's, interview for my kids.
The high school, you mean, yeah.
It's not a high school. It's K through 12.
Okay.
Yeah, so I went to the school, and we sat down with them. It's the premier school in all of Florida, okay? 50 grand a year, some number like that. If you're around the area, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I asked the question, I'm like, so what is the school's top priority with all the different issues going on worldwide? What would you say is the top issues that you guys want to educate the kids on? Oh, number one is climate change. Oh, okay, fantastic. What else? 2, equity and inclusive and all this stuff. Oh, okay, what else? So how do you feel about capitalism? Well, what do you mean by that? I said, how do you feel about capitalism? Are you a Trump voter? I said,
they asked you that?
I said, the fact that I'm telling you capitalism, you think I'm a Trump voter? Because I said capitalism. What does capitalism have to do with being a Trump voter? Mm-hmm. That's how you categorize it. So I said, what do you feel about? Well, we like to teach capitalism and socialism and communism, the pros and cons of it, and we let the kids decide. I said, so wait a minute. You the pros and cons of communism, yeah, we like to teach all of that and let the kids decide. I'm like, how much more market research do you need to realize this doesn't work, right? This killed a lot of people. What's the moral of the story? You got to be asking those questions. You got to be protective with your kids. If you can't afford to put your kids in private school, you have to be involved to know what they're going through, what they're dealing with, what they're teaching them, what they're being talked to. Because in a time like this, schools like this are showing you their true colors. And parents, if you send your kids there, knowing what they stand for, just because you want to brag to your sister, your brother, your cousins, that your kid went to Harvard, you could potentially lose your kids for 10 to 20 years to some pathetic ideology.
Yeah, let me give you a little extra perspective on Penn, because this whole situation, we're kind of coming in on the 9th inning and being like, yeah, that's what happened in the game. but there's been a whole buildup to what's going on specifically at Penn, who basically they were the one university that their president stepped down. So this has been building up for years. They've been on a collision course for basically 5 years, culminating with the step down of, what's her name again? Liz McGill, who stepped down as the president?
Yes.
So let me go
McGill.
back in
But
history
she's
a little
still a
bit.
tenured professor, by the way. So
she's
they
a-
didn't
She goes
drop-
back to the law school
goes
where
back
she's
to the
came
law
from.
school. Yes.
So just to kind of paint a picture, that's been sort of the progressive woke left leaning universities. We understand that with their sort of appeasement of radicalism that's been sort of culminating in these academic echo chambers on the left side. On the right side, you have traditionally conservative capitalist businessmen who are on the board of trustees, who are basically donating hundreds of millions of dollars. So sort of funding this operation, especially in Wharton. You'll be familiar with this company's name, Apollo Global Management. It's run by a guy, the CEO, Mark Rowan, okay? Familiar with that name? Then you also have Ross Stevens. He's the guy that ended up withdrawing $100 million from Penn. All right, so here's what's going on. So this collision course has been a brewing. We're seeing what happened with the congressional hearing. Let's go back a few years from now. Do you remember the name Lia Thomas? Who was that?
The swimmer?
She was the swimmer. He was the
right.
swimmer.
He, whatever.
They were the swimmer.
Yes.
Exactly. So what school did he, she, they go to?
Penn State.
So what? No, not Penn State, brother.
Oh, my bad.
Penn.
My bad.
Big
my bad.
difference.
No, not Penn State.
Exactly.
Penn.
Not the Nittany
Penn.
Lions. These guys right here.
God, she is an
So
ugly dude.
he,
Word
she,
of
they,
finish.
them was the swimmer that was a trans swimmer. Now here's what happened. This was, I believe, in 2020, 2021. She was going through her trans situation, gender identity. We all understand that. Vinny, all right, brother?
Yeah, because he says, I'm sorry, because he points, he goes, she's wearing
No,
a Valuetainment shirt. And look at that face on that photo. Oh,
They
man.
are wearing a Valuetainment shirt, Vinny. Have a little
so
respect
sorry.
for he, she, they, them. But here's what happened at the time. They, her, won this big swim meet.
Yeah.
What happens then? Penn University nominates her to the NCAA as Woman Athlete of the Year.
Oh, weird.
So all the trustees, all the boards, conservative thinking capitalists are like, all right, y'all, we're going a little too far. This is the face of our brand.
Yeah, female
Lia
swimming.
Thomas.
Yeah.
So if you remember that. So she becomes this nominee for NCAA Woman of the Year, nominated by Penn. Okay? The trustee, the board of trustees, they're all going, what the fuck is going on here right now? Fast forward to this past summer, prior to the October 7th Hamas attack, the Palestinian groups on campus were basically organizing this summer river to the sea revival ideology type thing. The board, Apollo, Mark Rowan, the rest of the crew is like, yeah, not the best look for the school. People are basically going back and forth on this. They try to sort of stop and appease, whatever. They're having all these debates. Boom, October 7th happens. Boom, anti-Semitism happens. Boom, she steps down. But there's been a track record that's been basically awaiting this collision course, and that's why there's no surprise that she stepped down immediately.
Apollo is the Leon Black guy that gave $500 million to Epstein for estate planning.
$500 million.
Tax planning.
Exactly.
Who the hell pays that?
That's right.
By the way, this has been activism for a while. Rob, can you go back to the Harvard grade
Yeah,
chart?
Leon Black. There you go.
Go back to the Harvard grade chart real quick. Take a look at this. Look at what happened in the late 60s. A sharp rise in grades given by Harvard in the 1960s to help students avoid the military draft that was Vietnam. Wow. Now, I'm not saying Vietnam was a good war, right? He says, I, as a 6-year-old, remember a Vietnam funeral. It was a bad war. It was a bad thing, and a lot of people died. But what Harvard did was, well, we can't have our kids going there, and look what they did to the GPA to help them avoid the draft. It's called academic deferment. So to get the academic deferment, the point is Harvard has been activist going back to the 1960s, and you see the grade compression here, what's going on there. So their lack of authenticity has gone way back, and there have been things brewing below the surface. And so to see the three presidents come out there, these presidents are not outliers. And to cut the head off the snake, it's a Hydra. It grows 8 more.
Yep.
That's exactly what you're going to see with the Ivy League, which is why the Ivy League has come out and saying, well, we're all kind of nuts. How can we get rid of our Harvard president? Because we all feel the same. You know what? Deal with the flack. Deal with the aftermath. Let's get behind her, regardless of the billboards, regardless of the alumni, regardless of the people saying they're not donating anymore. We don't care. There's another side to this, right? The other side. So people say, why would you care? Pat, why would you care? Wouldn't you care if 10 million, 100 million people stopped giving you money? No, and I'll tell you why. Because they were just given money in Biden forgiving student loans. How? Because they can charge whatever tuition they want, and the poor kids that end up saddled with it get forgiven by members of Biden's cabinet that recommend that you should do the student loan forgiveness that went to freaking Harvard. So Harvard's perfect. They're like, Vinny, you're going to pay $50,000 a year to go to school here. I am. Well, we'll give you student loans. We'll give you academic aid for 25 of it, but you still got to pay 25. Mm-hmm. You get a student loan. 25 a year comes to Harvard. They get paid, right? They're paid. Yep. You're saddled. Don't worry. A couple of our guys will be in a presidential cabinet someday, and we'll just forgive your loans. Oh, wow. Harvard gets it. Do you see the cycle?
Check this out.
Wow. So cycle of life.
Biden administration on Wednesday announced an additional $4.8 billion in student loan debt relief affecting more than 80,000 borrowers. The announcement brings the total approved debt cancellation by Biden administration to $132 billion for more than 3.6 million Americans before President Biden took office. It was virtually impossible for eligible borrowers to access the student debt relief they rightfully earned. Student debt relief they rightfully earned. What do you mean they rightfully earned? Tom said that earlier.
What the hell?
U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona said, the data released today once again make clear that the Biden-Harris administration's relentless effort to fix the broken student loan system are paying off in a big way. This level of debt relief is unparalleled, and we have no intention of slowing down. So what is debt relief? So first of all, who's responsible for it? Why are schools charging as much as they're charging? Why are you not putting this on schools? Schools are sitting there saying, keep doing debt relief. We got our money. We don't give a shit. We got our money. We don't give a shit. We got our money. We don't care. We don't care. We don't care. Do as much as you want to do this. We're totally fine with that. And you're teaching kids to be bailed out at a young age. They chose to go to college. Nobody told them to go to college. Your administration has sold the idea of being successful as going to college. Great. So they go to college. They borrow the money. Now you're saying they rightfully earned the debt relief eligible borrowers? What they rightfully earned eligible, what do you call it, debt relief they rightfully earned. I think it's insane what's going on, but colleges are sitting there celebrating, saying that $4.8 billion is coming to us.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.